So I've been thinking a lot, like a lot, about quitting my job. It took a lot for me to get there, and the way that I got to think about quitting my job and actually start the process of quitting my job, I realized that as society, we're stuck in this very capitalistic society, and one that just wants you to go, go, go. Especially me living in New York City. Oh my God, it's like, it never stops. It's like the rush, the drive, the energy, everything, it's always on the go. And there's never a time or a chance for you to stop, pace yourself, breathe. And I figured out that like me continuously going and going and going is not good for me. The stress and the anxiety and the panic attacks and things like that have just amplified the longer I'm in this job, and corporate job I just feel like is not for me. But I have to still make an income, or I still have to, make money to live my life, unfortunately. So the reason that I wanted to make this video was to share with everybody else how I'm kind of figuring out the different steps that I'm taking in order to quit my job. Because you can't just be like, oh, I'm quitting cold turkey and that's it. Like, you have to line some things up, you have to get there. And so I have my handy dandy notebook. Here we go, Dora. A handy dandy computer, written down things that have been helpful for me and things that I'm moving towards doing in order to make it official that I'm leaving. So the first thing that I did before anything else, literally before anything else, was set a date. There were multiple times in multiple months where I said, I'm going to quit roughly this month or roughly that month. And then that time came around and it was just like, this is not a good time to quit. This is not a good, like, ooh, like this thing is happening and that thing is happening and I shouldn't quit. Like, it's not good. But I finally, after pushing back, like maybe it was like 3 months here that I pushed back, and then 6 months here, and then here we go. I'm in this job another year and I'm like, oh my God, it's getting worse and worse and worse. So I'm like, I can't do it anymore. So I've officially set like a specific date, and I'm like, okay, I need to line up everything else around this so that this is the day that I'm going to quit. But setting that date makes it official, because before you set that date and you're just giving yourself round numbers and when you're gonna quit, it doesn't make it real. Once you have that specific date, that's when you're like, okay, this is real now. We're counting down the days, we're getting closer to it, and you start to actually figure out what you need to do in order to get to that point and actually be able to quit. Another thing that I've been doing is I've been setting money aside. I know for a lot of people that's probably really hard to do, especially in this economy. Usually you get your paycheck and everything goes to, unfortunately, bills, and it's not easy. I know that probably I have the luxury, and some other people have the luxury of like being able to set aside money and things like that, and be able to quit a job. But if you can even put away $5, $10, this and that, obviously you're not going to get to the point where like it's going to take a lot longer for you to get to that point, but at least you're doing something to save your money and get to where you want to be. So I have been kind of going to the point where I'm like, okay, I need at least 3 months of money just in case. Like, I'm still gonna work when I quit my job, but I still need some backup money just in case I get fired or I don't make the income that I need to, or something happens, or you always need this safety net to fall back on, because if you don't, it's not good. And speaking of having that money, putting it into the savings account is like what you want to do. But what I've learned and what I've been doing for quite a while now, I think a little over a year, is I've put that money that I'm trying to save into a high yield savings account. A high yield savings account is an account that has a specific interest. So it's way more than the average. So if you're going to a regular bank, I had a bank and I was getting like 0.01%, and I was seeing probably a penny a month when I had my money in there. Then I figured out that there's this high yield savings account. There's a bunch of banks and they're usually online, unfortunately, but I still have my in-person one and then I have my online one, so I can kind of transfer the money back and forth. And as long as they're FDIC approved, then you're good, because that means that if the bank closes or something like that, then the government backs it up so that they're supposed to give the money back to you if something happens to the bank. There's a few different banks. There's SoFi, there's Fidelity, there's Vanguard. There's a few different ones. Look and see what the best one is, but they have a certain APY. Right now they're usually around 4% up to 5 or 6%, and you can be making an extra $20, $30, $40, $100 and up a month just by having the interest in there. And it's insane. Every month I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is crazy. And even if you don't add to it, there's always going to be interest building. So you're always going to be making money even if you don't add to it. It's basically your money building for you when you don't do anything to it. And why wouldn't you do it? So if you keep putting a little bit of money in there, every month the interest will increase a little bit and a little bit more. And then it's just that constant cycle of it. It'll keep building and building and building. So it'll help you rather than work against you. Because, you know, if you put your money into a savings account or a regular checking account, it's not going to build for you. It's only building when you put money in it. But this one, it builds for you on top of you building it. So it's a little bit easy, makes it a little bit easier and helps you build your money a little bit faster. Even if you don't have, like, if it's hard for you to save or you don't have the income or something like that, this helps you in so much. I'm telling you, it's worth it. And I know some people will be like, oh, but you have to pay taxes on it at the end, but you're still making the money. You're not gonna pay, you have to pay taxes on, you literally have to pay taxes on everything. So to pay taxes on this is like, what, if you make, let's say the whole year you make $100, you're gonna pay what, $25 in taxes, but you still made $75. So that's literally not accurate, so don't take my word for it, but you're still making money even though you have to pay taxes on it. So just do it. Just do it. Look into it. I'm telling you. Make sure you set out a plan. So for me, I'm asking myself, what am I going to do after I quit? Have a detailed plan of, okay, I'm going to quit and I need to make this much money, so I need to do this and I need to do that. I'm trying to take the time a little bit for myself because I feel like this corporate job has, or just, you know, corporate jobs in general have just taken all the life out of me, and I need some time to regroup and pull myself back together and just live. My plan, honestly, is to take some time for myself and just kind of like ride the wave a little bit, but I also have plans to get another job that's probably part-time and probably either in the food industry or retail or something like that, just so I can make enough money to pay my bills and things like that. But obviously you're still gonna have that 3 months to fall back on just in case that you've built up for yourself. But have a plan, write it down, think about it so you know what you're doing and you know where you're going. And you want to sit down and calculate how much money you're going to need every month to sustain yourself, to pay all your bills. Take all your expenses that you have that you need to pay for every single month and write that down, detail it down, and see what that total is. Obviously, maybe you want to throw in a little bit extra for if you want to go out to eat or if you want to do these things. Obviously, it's going to be a little harder because you're not going to have that 9-to-5 corporate income, which is not that great anyways, by the way. But still, you want to have a detail of everything that you have to pay for so that you know and you can account for, well, it's also accounting for how much you have to save up those 3 months and also how much you need to make every month in order to sustain that, because you can't just go in and be like, oh yeah, I'll be able to make, like, what if your expenses are $5,000? That's not even my expenses, but let's say your expenses are like $5,000 and you only make $3,000. Obviously that's not gonna work. So you really gotta think about what's gonna work for you and where you have to work and where you have to go in order to fulfill that minimum that you're setting, that you have set for yourself, depending on where you live and what you need to buy and all these things and what bills you have to pay for. So you just have to really think about that. Also, in order to get there, you need to budget. I have found budgeting to be super helpful, like extremely helpful. So what I usually do, you can see what works best for you, but I will look at my total amount that I make. I will give myself a total amount that I can spend every week. Let's just say I give myself $100 that I can spend this week. So that includes food, that includes literally anything except for like a reoccurring payment. So that doesn't account for bills, that doesn't account for any of those things. It even doesn't account for purchasing like your usual grocery haul, things like that. But if you go out of your way to go somewhere else to buy food, that you have to add to it. Or if you buy something else, I add to it. Every little thing that I buy, I add to it, and I total it up in my phone to see how much I've spent that week. And then at the end of that week, it'll restart for the next week. And then what I do is I keep those numbers, and at the end of the month, I see how much I have left over. And then I will either take that money, and what I'll do is I'll take half of it, and half will go into my savings account, and the other half I can spend it or do whatever I want with it or just leave it. Because what I like to do is I like to sometimes splurge and buy this and buy that, but if I give myself a budget to stay within and I actually stick to it, that's what you have to do, you have to actually stick to it, then it will work in your favor. And also what's nice if you think that way, let's say you spent $50, $50, $50, $50, right? So you would have $200 left at the end of the month. And let's say you take it in half, and you put 100 into your savings, and then you take the other half and you're like, I have $100 that I can spend on something. You know what? Splurge on yourself. Do not limit yourself. Some people are saying like, oh, you know, what's making you not be able to be rich is you buying your coffees or you like doing some little thing for yourself. And you know what? That is completely false. That is completely false. So if you want to make yourself feel better, if you want to treat yourself a little bit, you do it, but you do it in a smart way. Don't just be like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna treat myself, I'm gonna buy this $1,000 purse or something like that. No. You need to do it in a smart way. See what works the best for you, because this works really well for me, and I've seen my money build, and when I fall off of it a little bit, I see that my money doesn't build as fast, and I'm like, oh. So try that out and see if that works for you. The biggest tip that I want to say is honestly just do it. If you want to quit your job, do it. Because I sometimes have a hard time with sticking to it. I can always be like all over the place sometimes, but my brain honestly kind of plays tricks on me, because I'll be like, yes, this is the date I've set, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna do it, and then maybe like a week or two later I'm like, oh my god, I shouldn't do it, like it's gonna be a bad time, how am I gonna make this money? And then I have all this anxiety running through my head, and I'm like, no, you need to calm down, think positively about it, you're on the right track, you're setting yourself up well for this, breathe through it, and then maybe a couple days later or a week later, I'd be like, okay, I feel more stable in this, I feel better about my decision. But then I go through that cycle of like, I feel great about it, and then I don't feel great about it, and then I feel great about it. And I don't want you to be discouraged, because honestly, if you think about it, the people who took these chances on themselves and on their lives are usually the ones who have these big businesses, these big corporations. I mean, you don't need big corporations, but have done something good with their life and are happy with their lives. And if you don't take the risk, you're not gonna get there. And right now all I'm thinking is like, if I don't put time and effort into myself, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna be making money for somebody else, and that's not what I want to do. So I'm like, I have to feel uncomfortable in order to get there. I have to do this, because if I don't make myself uncomfortable and I don't push through, then I never know what my life could be. And I think back about when I first moved to New York City, and it was so uncomfortable for me to apply to a school in New York City and wait and see if I was gonna get in, and then move here, and it was new and it was something that I never experienced before, and I still did it even though I was scared and uncomfortable and didn't know what I was gonna do, and it ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And I'm like, if that's what happened to me then, what do we think can happen to me now? Like, if I take another chance on myself and say I can do this, why can't I? Like what's stopping me? Fear? I'm like, you know, I did it once. I put myself through an uncomfortable situation and I can do it again and I can make it, and I just have to think positively about it because I just know that it's gonna get me somewhere. I feel like this is like at the end of a letter where you write PS. This is like my little PS, but I have followed a bunch of financial people, financial advisors online or like on Instagram, and I bought their books and things like that. And there are some, if they have good things to say, I guess you can watch them. I'm not gonna name names on who I don't like, but there are people that I don't like when they talk about finances, because they do say things like, oh, you're buying coffee, well, that's making you poor. Or they say things like, oh, if you're saving money and you have debt, you shouldn't see the inside of a restaurant unless you're working there. You probably know who that is, but it's okay. But I watched their content and I felt that's how I learned so many other things about investing and saving your money and how to do this and how to do that. And I can talk more to you guys about money things if you guys want to. I'm just very interested in it, and I feel like we should talk about money and not be uncomfortable about it, because if we're uncomfortable about it, we're not going to help each other grow and make money and build generational wealth, which is something we want to do. One is Financial Feminist. This is Tori Dunlap. I followed her for probably over a year now, and she has been the one who I started watching, and I've learned about the HYSA and about investing and about so many different things. And I really recommend just reading her stuff, or even just following her. You don't even have to read her book, but following her and going through her tips. And then the other person is Madeline Pendleton, and it's I Survived Capitalism, and all I got with this lousy t-shirt. I haven't read this book yet, but I like a lot of things that she says. She seems very educated and knows a lot of things. These two individuals are also very different, and you don't have to like everything that they talk about. The snippets that I've learned and gained from them have helped me so much in life, and I just wanted to shout out them and tell you guys about them because it's helped. It's helped a lot. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like it down below, subscribe. Why aren't you subscribed? And comment if you'd like me to talk about any more money tips, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.